Thank you very much. Welcome to the Town of Rocky Mountain House. This is the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting for June 11th, 2024, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to the adoption of the agenda. Is there any changes or corrections to the agenda as distributed? So that I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also move the acceptance of the agenda as presented.
Okay, so with no further questions or comments on that motion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And that's none, and so that's carried. Today we have no delegations, and we move to 4.1, the adoption of previous committee meeting minutes for May 14th, 2024. And so I'm looking for a motion. Deputy Mayor Caprero.
Thank you. I will make a motion to move the GPC meeting minutes from May 14th, 2024.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. We have no delegation business today and no old business, so we'll get right in the thick of it and move to new business. We have an RFD for an audit committee bylaw, 7.1. And so I just had a, does anybody have any questions or comments on this? So it was brought forward after meeting with our auditor, and like a brief discussion took place. Think about, sort of like procedurally what we were looking for following that meeting. And so, Mr. Kraus, did you want to say anything further to this, or anybody else? Is there any questions on the bylaw? Councillor Phillips.
Not necessarily a question. I'm just, do we need an audit committee? I mean, we meet with the auditor one way or the other. Do we need an audit committee, or we just do it the way we've been doing it? That's kind of my question. I don't know if we need an audit committee, that's all.
Right. So, Councillor Phillips, I had the same question, but if you look through it, the committee is all of us. So it's actually just naming one of our meetings as a committee meeting instead of it being just a regular meeting, so they're calling it a committee meeting.
That's why I was questioning, do we
Right.
need it? Because it's still all of council. We're doing it as all of council the other way. Potato, does it make any difference?
Right. I believe this came up because of our request to have the meeting with the auditor just with council. And then that would be a committee meeting. Is that why it's a committee and a bylaw? I'm not sure.
No, Your Worship, I mean, council, in a council meeting for me with the auditor, with just the auditor.
Okay.
With administration out of the room. The auditor calls it an audit committee, because that's what he's required under PSAP, I guess is what it is. And the town has historically just had council as a whole to be that committee. And then council requested that a separate committee be established for that purpose of meeting with the auditor only.
Yeah. So, Councillor Schippel, thank you for your patience. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. Yeah, I had the same questions. I questioned at the time that we had put the resolution forward if it was something that was necessary, if we're just duplicating something that we already have in place. And, I appreciate the work that staff put in to create this bylaw, but I just kind of question whether it's something that we really need and if it's going to make a difference on how we do business.
So with Mr. Kraus's answer that that's sort of what the auditor called it, that doesn't, you still have the question of why we're doing it? Yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify. Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I totally agree that I think we should have this in place. I think it gives us the ability to have a committee meeting outside the council meeting. We debated about how long it would take. Should we have it an hour before a council meeting? It was to talk about, it was to talk about what was in the audit. And I think in this case, it gives us direction as to what we're looking for. When you look at what's in here, we're looking for fraud, we're looking for different things. Just getting together with them, sometimes we can lose focus on what's going on. So I think this gives us direction as to what we as council need to do. It is a committee of council. I think it should be in place. And it gives us, sorry, if I could, Your Worship.
Yeah, absolutely.
It gives us the option to pull it aside on a different date even if we need to, so it doesn't tie it to a council meeting.
So my only question when I went through it was, because I was curious, is it a committee separate from all of council? There's quorum, there's all the things. 8.5, the committee shall meet at a minimum twice a year, one with the meeting being in the audit process with the auditor and another meeting for review of the draft financial statements. And so we're just moving what we normally do into what we call a committee, but we do it anyways, so it's not really, we do it anyways, it's just putting a different title on it. So that's correct, right? Like, we
Yes,
meet with you?
that's correct. The difference is that it's a committee meeting. It wouldn't form part of your minutes of your regular council meetings. That would be the difference.
So it would be like we could have a fruitful and, private conversation with the auditor in case there's anything that he wanted to say. Not that, just.
Yeah, no,
'cause
you
it's-
could, because usually the auditor's required to meet with council before they start the audit, just in case there's anything that they specifically want them to look at, they always ask. And they'll sort of outline what their process is for the year. And then the second meeting that you need is to review the audited financial statements. And this way, he gets to do it in a committee setting as opposed to the actual council meeting. And then it would just be referred to the council meeting for approval.
Okay. So, Counselor Hutchinson.
Thank you. So for clarity, there's no minutes taken by this, or at the committee level. I have two questions, so.
So, Mr. Kraus, what was, answer that question
Yeah,
first?
no, minutes would be taken of the committee. Like, the committee would still pass motions and resolutions. Like, for example, you would review the financial statements, so then it'd be a rise and report to send the financial statements for council to approve.
Just like policing or rec or any other meeting, right? Mr.
And-
Kraus?
Yes, but council could have a closed session with the auditor if they so desired to talk about any items or issues, so.
And that was my second question. So it's the meeting as it's defined in the bylaw would be open to the public, open to just like any other committee meeting. And then if we needed to have a discussion or wanted something, we would go in camera, as we would one of these meetings,
Any
so to
other
speak.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
So really, it's just putting a title and a bylaw to something that we're already doing, in a nutshell. Does that sound fair explanation? So I agree with Councillor Chappelle. If no one else has any questions or comments, my final comment is our job is to, it's our fiduciary duty to just, ask questions, and this gives us an opportunity to have an independent conversation and make sure that we're fulfilling our duties. Councillor Chappelle?
If you'd allow me, Your Worship, I'd like to make the motion. Let it be
Yes.
resolved, the council rise and report the audit committee bylaw 2024/08 to the June 18, 2024 regular council meeting.
Thank you very much. If there's any questions or comments on the motion, Councillor Hutchinson, you have a question on the motion?
Thank you. No, I just wanted to say that I'm opposed to this. From what I understand, this is no different than any other, the procedure that we've been following. We have the same opportunity, as you just stated, Mayor, at our regular council meetings to be responsible and accountable, and I just feel that this is we're just mimicking what we're doing already, so I just don't see the need for a separate bylaw for it.
Okay. So the motion on the table is a rise and report to council about this bylaw? There's no further questions or comments on the motion. I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the table? And any opposed? And so that motion is carried. Moving forward in the agenda today, we are at 7.2, an municipal energy manager position. And I believe Mr. Arndt's going to speak towards that. Is that correct?
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. Before you today to talk about the municipal energy management position. So it was at council's request. The direction was to apply for the municipal energy manager program and provide detailed report about the program, including budget implications, organizational impacts, and workload. The report outlines I'm just going to go to the financial section first. Some of this information was provided in the previous package when we spoke about the program. The Municipal Center for Climate Change Action Center does provide potential funding for a municipal energy manager. In year one would be 80% of the salary up to a maximum of $80,000. Includes $20,000 in rebates and some of the initiatives be acted upon. Year two would be $40,000 of the salary up to $40,000 per year and an additional $40,000 in rebates. Applying for the M program would have an impact on the 2025 budget. Benefits are not included or eligible for the grant, so we estimate on $80,000 for salary. If the energy manager is on a contract, that would they would not receive benefits, and if they were permanent position, then they would. Right. The cost to the town we've estimated between $20,000 and $36,000, depending on which type of position it is, contract or permanent. And the second year would cost the town would increase by about $32,000, so between $52,000 and $68,000, again, depending on whether it's a contract or a permanent position. As far as organizational wise, it would have some impacts. Obviously, submitting the expression of interest and the application to MCCAC, preparing job description, and there is, including your package, a sample job description that was provided by MCCAC, sort of outlining what the typical duties would be of an energy manager. The new position will create additional work for whoever will supervise the employee. We haven't determined which department that might fall under yet, but, again, whether it's a 1 year or 2 year position, establishing the salary for the new position and allocating a budget for this new position. Position recruitment, setting up office location. Right now I have a space in the rec building right across from my hall that's currently used by our summer day camp person, but right now that's a vacant office space basically. And then purchasing supplies and computer and all those other things that would be needed to house a new employee. And then purchasing specific software. One example is the RET screen, and we've actually utilized that as part of an application we made for the Green and Inclusive Buildings grant. The consultants we used did use that program specifically for energy management. So we've prepared some sample documents from MCCAC about the energy managers. So some of their responsibilities include like managing and tracking energy savings projects, analyzing energy performance and using monitoring equipment and statistical analysis, and collect, organize, and analyze the energy data, identify, prioritize, and implement energy savings projects, motivating and working with the facility management personnel and teams to, on energy efficiency best practices, writing technical reports, coordinating internal and externally with a broad group of stakeholders, communication, a lot of it is communication through written documentation, manage projects to deliver on time and within budgets, collaborating with team members. Yeah, and you can read the rest of that. I did put together sort of a list of pros and cons of hiring an energy manager. You know, expertise, obviously, in energy management. One of the things outlined is you're looking for an engineer with specific
Qualifications.
training in energy side of things. You know, there could be cost savings, you know, by approved energy efficiency. You know, you could have projects that help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. You know, as an example, some of the projects we've undertaken at the pool had those targets in mind when we're applying for grants and those things. Again, you can develop long-term strategic plans, access and writing those grant reports and applications, enhancing your community's image as being a energy and sustainable community. That's identified in our strategic plan as well. Improved operational efficiencies by finding those energy efficiency things that perhaps we can initiate, and then compliance with regulations and provincial requirements. Some of the cons, obviously, the initial costs. Hiring a full-time energy manager involves upfront costs related to salary, benefits, potential training, resource allocation. You know, sometimes smaller communities may struggle to justify and afford the expense of a full-time energy manager. Implementation challenges, dependence on funding. Again, at this point, year one is potential of getting some grant funding for it. The long payback period. Again, some of the energy programs, thinking of solar as an example, your return on investment can be a long time, but those are the things that an energy manager could do all the research and provide that information directly to council. Yeah, and then in conclusion, I guess hiring a municipal energy manager can offer numerous benefits, including cost savings, reduced greenhouse gas emissions, and enhanced operational efficiency. However, it also involves challenges such as initial costs, implementation complexities, and the need to sustain funding or for sustained funding. One of the things that's outlined is that it can be a challenge to find the right people who are qualified, again, for a contract or a permanent position in this area. The town, you know, just noted that we've made progress over the last 4 or 5 years in upgrades to our facilities with energy efficiency technology and equipment. There are no specific projects identified in the current 10-year capital plan, but there may be potential new projects, i.e. the new civic building or possible solar types of projects. One of the comments we did add is that due to the size of our organization and the number of facilities, administration, we're concerned that we maybe don't have enough work to keep somebody busy for a full-time position, you know, whether it's for a year or however long. But so I've got a couple of alternatives there for council to discuss, but if you have any questions, I'll try my best between myself and our CAO to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. And now I'll turn it over to Councillor Hutchinson as a questioner.
Thank you. A question or two. So the funding is available for either contract or employee. That's
Yeah,
at our discretion.
From what, you know,
What you
Ms.
understand?
Quinlan and I have looked at, I don't think there's a distinction on how you allocate your funding.
Okay. And so could we put in the application or the expression of interest, have that happen, and then once we get back our, what's that, building assessment, the assessment report back, like that would tie in with what, on a go-forward basis, what the data used from that study would fit right into a person that would be filling this position?
Yeah, they would certainly, like the facility asset management, study that we're doing right now, those results are supposed to be back to council by end of August. We'll have that report from the consultants. Yeah, looking at that, some of the recommendations that will come out of that, not specific to energy management, but the information in there will tell you the condition of our facilities and perhaps some of these energy efficiency initiatives could be beneficial in the long term, but it will also, that report will then identify, what's the expected life expectancy of any of our facilities.
So kind of to my original question, if we put in the expression of interest and hypothetically we are going forward with this, we hire somebody, we find after a couple months that, maybe we don't have enough work for that full-time position, can we then at that time reach out to another municipality to do a share? Or does that share agreement have to be included in the original expression of interest?
From the information I gathered as reading through that, I think that one of their recommendations for smaller municipalities is to do that, looking for a partner first, and then
Okay.
submitting a joint expression of interest and application.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have more questions? Councillor Phillips?
Excuse me. A frog in my throat. Yes, I think looking at this position and the concerns that administration has with keeping this person busy in a full-time position, I would like to see it more as a contract position as opposed to an employee position. And I do think it's prudent that we maybe look at partnering with another municipality first. I can see the benefits of having this person for sure, especially with our asset report coming out here in August. I think it gives us an opportunity to really look at some granting applications that we can take advantage of. But I do think that we should maybe look at partnering with another municipality as the first step. And I definitely would like to see it as a contract position.
No question. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Councillor Hutchinson?
No, I would agree with what Councillor Phillips says, and just, it could definitely be an asset to the community. Again, we get our study coming back, we just don't want to have that sitting on a shelf. And this would enable us to move forward in a positive way. But having said that, I would be in favor, or I would put forward the motion that council instruct administration to investigate if another municipality would partner in hiring a municipal energy manager.
So you're making the motion now? Yeah, thank you very much. Is there any other questions or comments? So I don't think this is a necessary position. We have a lot of aging infrastructure, and I would rather see any money put into the new civic building or the new RCMP detachment or buildings like that, and save any money with, the costs that are out here. I just feel, certainly we can have a look to see if there's another municipality willing to partner, but even then, I think that, we should be focused on kind of what we already have in front of us. Why would we need to do an energy evaluation of a new building? I'm hoping that those would already be sought out with the new building, which, we have. So that's my position on that. Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess where I'm at is I don't totally understand the position. Are they the kind of person that's going to come and say, hey, you need new windows in this building and a new furnace in that building? And are they, for our investment there, going to just cause us an understanding in terms of long-term, costs? Or what's the function of that person? I guess that's one of my concerns. My other concern is if they are a part-time position or even a third-time position, we're assuming if that could be a half-time position shared with another community. But in your report, you say, well, we don't have a lot of buildings. So maybe that would run short quickly in terms of, well, there's no work for you. And then thirdly is, we're struggling for positions and money, and I'm just not 100% sure, other than it sounds good, could it just cause us more grief long-term? So I guess the question I'd have for you, Wes, is what is the function of that position? I'm just,
I can answer it. Sure.
Somebody has to turn their light off.
So,
Thank
Your Worship,
you.
to Councillor Schippel, and I guess the answer is all of the above. They would take a building, for example, identify the energy efficiency opportunities, figure out the cost of those energy upgrades, figure out the payback time for the savings on utilities and so forth, submit the grant applications to see if we can get grants for that energy upgrades, and provide all that back to council.
Thank you very much. So Councillor Chappelle, did you have a follow-up question, or I can move on to the next person? I'm sorry, someone's gonna have to
Yeah, I can expand on that. And I think where administration really struggled with the position when we started to analyze it and how can it work in the organization is, how many facilities do we have? What state are they in? I mean, we'll have a better idea. We generally know now. But even this building, we don't know the direction of this building. If council selects a new civic building, well, then this energy manager would actually have nothing to do with that. That would be in the design of the new building. If council elects, no, you know what, let's rehab this building, well, now that energy manager comes into play because there's a lot of upgrades to this building for energy efficiency, and we could get granting for that. So a lot of it is, for the position, is we're in a bit of a flux because we don't know some of the directions that council, we just haven't come to that point yet, right?
Yeah.
So we look at this building, so there's that one. The rec center is a fairly new building. I mean, can there be energy efficiency in the arena? Probably, because they're an older part of that structure. The library and fire hall, what's the future of that? We know we're going to need a new fire hall within a certain time period, 10 years or so, because it's cramped in there now. So do we invest in that building, or do we look at a new building? I mean, those are decisions in the future. So how does this all fit in with the energy manager? They can look at different other aspects of it. Does our fleet need electric vehicles? Going down that path. Can we look at the water treatment plant and have more efficient pumps or energy pumps and stuff like that? So, there is work, but I could not bring myself to say we have a full-time position here. So if council's goal is for increased energy efficiency throughout the organization, then let's figure out how to achieve that. This is one look at it, but there's other avenues to do it also. If council, for example, selected this building to be rehab, there's actually contract firms out there that specializes in energy efficiency upgrades, and they'll actually take on the granting and stuff implying. So it could be just a contract per project type of approach. So really, it's the direction where council wants to go.
thank you for that, Mr. Cross, that's awesome. So to that, I'm still of the thought that I'm not going to support the motion that's on the floor presently. I think that you've given us some alternatives that can work equally as good. I see this position as somebody who's going to create programs, and if we don't get successful government grants, we're going to have a whole shelf full of
Ideas.
of studies on every building that we have in town, some of which are going to have a shorter shelf life than others, and some that are already destined at end of life. So I think at this point we're going to be spending money on stuff that doesn't make sense. So I'm against that motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chappelle. And your light is off, so I'll go to Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the explanation, Mr. Kraus. Yeah, I really appreciate the report here. I was hoping, when I knew this was coming up, that this report would convince me of the need for this position, and it hasn't. And so, I would like to think that energy efficiency is on the radar of every department already. And by the looks of it, right here in the conclusion, the town has made progress over the last 4.5 years in upgrading our facilities with energy efficient technology and equipment. It seems to me, it's the impression I get that this would be a redundant position, and so I'm not in favor of it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Musker. And so we do have a motion on the table. I don't see any more lights on, so I will call that motion to a vote. And just to refresh our memories, it's that the instruct administration to investigate if another municipality would partner in hiring an MEP manager or a municipal energy manager. And so I'll call that to vote. All in favor of that motion? And those opposed? And that motion has been carried. Thank you very much. So we're moving forward in the agenda. To business license bylaw 7.3. I see Mr. Schwader is going to present us with information. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. Just before Council today, in regards to the business license bylaw, in the 2023 service level review, I was directed by Council to Administration to review the business licenses that we do not charge, I guess, short-term rentals or rental properties within the town of Rocky Mountain House. As in my report today, we do not charge for rental properties, like as far as landlords that have duplexes, fourplexes, apartments, modular home parks, as well as short-term rentals, which is the Airbnb. So as far as through some research, as far as the number of owners, buildings, rentals, short-term rentals, there is 5 within our community. 2 of them are just bedrooms for rent, as well as some basements. There is one that has a B&B license presently, so that owner does have a license for their rental. In regards to duplexes, there's 22 duplexes within the community, a 6-plex, 14 apartment buildings that would be possibly charged for a business license, but also there's 5 modular home parks as well. So in regards to financial revenue, there'd be roughly $2,500 recouped, I guess, from the landlords, property management companies that run these rental properties within the community. As far as the Airbnbs, we know of one. The other 3 we would have to, whether by complaint basis, as far as if someone complained about an Airbnb being beside them or renting a room or whatever, we are unable, I guess, to track it down unless we sign up to rent that Airbnb for the night and we decide, figure out how, but like I said, usually based on complaint basis. And if these things are operating within the community, presently we are not getting any complaints from a visitor, tourist staying at the Airbnbs. So I guess moving forward, I'm not sure what year it was changed, but landlords on page 7 of 8, page 33, no license shall be required for landlords or any landlord businesses that own properties for rent. So it's pretty generic as far as I assume that's for residential, not non-residential. So and I think it was more concern of council was for the residential side of it as far as accommodations and rentals within the community. So I guess moving forward, I'm just looking for direction from council in regards to, do we want to go down the path in regards to rental properties and short-term rentals for business licenses within the town of Rocky Mountain House?
Thank you. You gave us some information that wasn't in our report.
Oh.
Can you just tell us again? So on page 6 of 8, I have, there are 14 apartment buildings, 1 sixplex and 22 fourplexes, but you had more information. You said a number of duplexes and something else.
I don't know the number of duplexes. I said duplexes in general. I didn't say duplexes. I don't know the number of duplexes. I don't know the number of duplexes within the town.
Oh,
No, I didn't say the number of duplexes. I said duplexes in general, as far as rental, like.
oh, okay, I
Yeah,
thought you were
sorry.
giving us information and I
No.
missed it. I just
No.
wanted you to repeat it.
No.
So, okay, so thank you for clarifying that comment, because then I got off target trying to figure out where that was written down at. I had another question about, do you know how many unapproved homes have like mother-in-law suites in that don't have permits? And,
No, we do not know that.
okay, thank you. Do you know how many are permitted?
I would have to do a little more research on that.
Okay. That was my question about that. I see now there's lots of lights, giving everybody enough time to think of questions. I'll go to Councillor Chappelle and then Councillor Phillips. Or do you want me to go backwards? I could go to Councillor
Yeah,
Phillips
Councillor
first.
Phillips first.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you. So just a quick question. If we do add business licenses to these Airbnbs and apartment buildings and such, what difference is that going to make between now when they don't have it and now when they do have it? What is that going to change from a municipality's point of view?
Really, they are approved already as far as apartment buildings, fourplexes. The ones that maybe are not insured are the short-term rentals, as well as, I guess, the modular home parks wouldn't have a business license as well. So I guess financially is the way we look at it, it'd be an increase of roughly $2,500 to $3,000 income for the community.
I think I want to clarify along the same lines. I think maybe he was asking you what is the purpose of having all these people have a license? Is that more closer to what you were meaning?
Yeah, I'm just questioning what advantage would it be to have a business license from a municipal side point of view, the actual dollars that it mean getting these business license revenue is small, to be honest. So what I'm getting at is what's the benefit to the municipality to doing this? Is there any benefit, or is this just an administrative burden? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so your worship, to Councillor Phillips. So I think that's a two-part answer. So the first part is, what is the purpose of a business license? So why do municipalities issue business licenses? So really what it is the municipality is reassuring to the patrons or the residents of the community that that business has met all the requirements to operate that business. And those requirements vary depending on the business. Some require Alberta Health Services approval or provincial approval for mechanics and stuff like that. So really that's the purpose of a business license, to reassure our citizens that this business has met all the requirements to operate that business. Now, in regards to renting out owning a fourplex and renting it out, what are the requirements? It's pretty minimal, right? I mean, they have the development permit, the building permit. But where it comes to council now is how do you, and what's fair, what businesses need business licenses and which don't. And I think that's the discussion where council got themselves to, is why does this business require to pay a business license fee while this business does not? So I think that's the two questions in front of council today, whether they want to proceed down this path or not.
Thank you for the clarification, and I will go now to Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess where I'm at is there's too many discrepancies in doing this. If I have 4 houses and I rent them all out, I don't have to have a business license. If I have a fourplex, I need a business license. I mean, there's so many anomalies in this whole thing. And the second part is, how do you ever track them down, is the second part. For $2,500, we're going to spend far more dollars in tracking it down than $2,500. I look at this as, hey, I used to have a business license when I had rental units, and then it went away. I don't know why it went away, but it went away. And I just see this as, there's not enough money in it at the end of the day to make sense as to try to collect it. We'll spend more than we're going to make on this from a staff perspective. So, and there's too many anomalies in it that, or discrepancies that don't work. So I would be in favor of accepting this report as information at this point.
Would you like to make that motion now?
I sure can. I believe there's, that resolve the council, accept this report as information.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hutchinson, did you have a question on the motion?
I do. I'm just questioning if we want to, I mean, staff has gone to the work of putting this together. Is it something that we could possibly, I mean, what if all of a sudden we get a big influx of Airbnbs opening up kind of thing? Do you want to just put it on the shelf, or is it something we wait a year, and if it does come back, then we could bring it back in a year's time from now? Just kind of some food for thought.
Well, I have an opinion on that, and I'm along the same lines. There's too many variables, and the other thing is that we want to encourage tourism in our community, and we also want to encourage long-term rental accommodations with the housing shortages that Alberta is facing. It's putting pressure on our community because people now can work from home and stuff. And so my question is, for $2,500, why would we make it more costly for long-term rental accommodations or B&Bs? They have to be certified by other agencies anyways. If you have a house and you're renting it, then there's a whole landlord-tenant board that looking after that. And I don't think we need to, I just don't think it's necessary. I'd like to leave it the way it is. Councillor Musker.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, to Mr. Schwader. Would you know what other municipalities are doing with this sort of thing?
Well, ones that are, say, more, like, you're not saying we're not tourism, but say Drumheller, they have a cap. They have over 120 Airbnbs within that community. So they have capped it at 120. I assume other communities are along the same way, but I kind of compare ourselves to Drumheller. And there's a lot, and I know I talked to our building inspector as far as other communities within central Alberta, because the ones that he does, he says they haven't touched anything regarding Airbnbs yet.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Chappelle, did you want to
Yes.
speak on your motion again?
Your worship, no, I want to speak to Councillor Hutchinson's point. I just want to look for clarification. If this is about all rental properties, but I think her reference was to Airbnb? Airbnb, whatever. Is that where you're saying that we should have maybe more control and they have a business license versus all the other rental units? I wasn't sure what you're saying there.
That would be the more, in my mind, the direction that we would go to, and not just fourplexes and other ones like that. And with having said that, if our industry goes crazy in the next, who knows, 6 months, year, 2 years, whatever it may be, would it be something, would we have the option of bringing this back, or will we just look at, if the need is there, creating something specific for more of the Airbnb or bread and breakfast type rentals?
So I think, Mr. Krause, correct me if I'm wrong, but anything can be brought back by someone on the, I was going to say winning side, tell me, not from the opposing, from the prevailing, thank you. That's from the prevailing side. It can be brought back at any time, and if someone from the opposing side, it does have to wait a year. Am I correct on that explanation to answer that specific question?
You are correct, Your Worship. I
Okay.
mean, but I mean, maybe that's a council discussion that council may want to have now, because an Airbnb is a lot different than having a rental house where someone rents for a year and works and lives in the community. If we went down the Airbnb path, I mean, I think the first step is to go back into the land use bylaw and maybe have a development permit requirement for Airbnb, because at least that way the adjoining residents are made aware that this is being approved, where versus on a business license side, we just issue the business license, right? So that might be a discussion council would want to have.
And so, Counselor Phillips?
Thank you. So, to me, other than the Airbnb side of this discussion, I really don't have a problem with, a house that's being rented out, because as Mr. Crowe said, that house being rented out, that resident is in the community and is a participating member of the community. With the Airbnbs, they can actually create housing shortages. If we're having short-term Airbnb, like short-term rentals in the Airbnbs, that can actually cause a housing shortage if you have enough of them in town. If we only have 5, I really don't see it as being a concern right now. But as Councillor Hutchinson said, if this does balloon at one point and maybe we have 100 Airbnbs, well, that's going to change the discussion, because now all of a sudden we are creating somewhat of a housing shortage, because they're short-term rentals. They're not going to be long-term rentals. So to me, I don't really see the need for this at this time. Maybe in a year's time we can re-look at it, maybe in 2 years' time, but the Airbnb side of it to me is where this kind of highlights, and I just don't see a need for it at present.
Okay, seeing as no one else has their lights on, and there seems to be no more further questions or comments on the motion, I will move forward with the vote. Be it resolved that council accept this request for decision, report for information, made by Councillor Chappelle. And so all in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that motion has been carried. Thank you very much. So moving forward in the agenda, we are now going to 7.4. Excuse me. It's the joint development area discussion, and I see Mr. Schwader is ready to start with that. Thank
Sure.
you.
So with the JDA, there's some councillors that were involved with this, I believe, and maybe were not. So we're just bringing back as much information as possible to inform the council in regards to the process that was done back in 2015 to 2017 with the town and county. I was not directly involved, but I was here with the town when this was being proposed. There was an ICC resolution, that's why I'm bringing it back to our respective council in regards to the information. I assume, hopefully, everyone read those 71 pages in regards to the history. It talks about, the process that the town and county went through, the costs that were involved, and those are 2017 costs that were in the document, and the cost-sharing formulas that were included. There was transportation costs on Highway 22, Airport Road. Then, of course, it talked about water and sewer going from the town over into those areas northeast of our community. I'm just really here just to see what direction council would like to go with JDA, if that's something that we want to pursue with the county, or where we stand.
Thank you very much for that information. Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Mr. Schwader. So reading through this document, and you may or may not know the answers to this, I was trying to figure out the cost of the infrastructure and the ownership of the infrastructure in the JDA. I was confused whether, because in one case it says the town puts it into has to put it in place, and then the county sort of takes it from there, and then it's jointly owned by everybody, and then there was a part that's not jointly owned by everybody. Do you have any idea how the infrastructure is put into place, who pays for what, and who's responsible for maintaining it after the fact?
Well, it would be us being responsible to maintain it, because it's part of our
Infrastructure.
system in regards to moving forward. There was a breakdown as far as cost-wise, 10%, 90% type of breakdown. I think at the end of the day, we had to pay X amount, I think 25% of the costs for the 75%, but also we did get revenue back from any development that was going on there, cost share or revenue share of the taxes as well. But as far as the cost-wise, I'd have to go a little more deeper into the, can't give you an answer right at the moment, but
It's very convoluted
Yeah.
when you read through it. I mean, it's almost complicated, so.
So thank you, and I'm sorry, Ken, or Counselor Musker, and we'll go to Counselor Phillips.
Thank
Seem to be
you.
number one today.
Thank you. So the biggest question before us, and you've heard me say these three words, shovel-ready land, shovel-ready land, shovel-ready land. We need shovel-ready land in the town of Rocky Mountain House. Is this the direction we want to go? Is the JDA the direction we want to go? Is there other P2s or P3s with private land that we want to look at? Is that the avenue that we want to go? But we need to do something. We need to look at this as an urgent topic, I think, because we have businesses in town that would like to expand and would like to grow, and there's nowhere to do it. So we need to give the opportunities to the businesses in town to grow and develop, and as that business moves out of its location into a new location and builds, that creates a location now that's existing for someone else to move into. So to me, this is a topic that we really need to take seriously. We need to look at, and is the JDA the way we're going to go, or is it going to be a P2 or P3? Can we encourage developers to do it on their own? As of now, for the last 20 years, the developers haven't been doing it on their own. Is it time now that we need to look at the town becoming a partner in something? I don't know what that something is or where that something is, but we need to look at it, because if we do nothing today, 10 years from now or 20 years from now, the councils of that day are going to have the same discussion as to why isn't the town growing? And the reason is we don't have shovel-ready land, and we haven't had shovel-ready land, and I know the county is in the same position. They need shovel-ready land. So this is a topic that we need to really seriously look at, and really need to pick a direction and pick a way of moving forward. So I would love to have this discussion. I would love to hear what my other council members think about this.
Okay, thank you very much for that comment. Counselor Musker?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just really grateful that this report has come back out into the light of day. It tells me we've got motivated municipal governments, both the town and the county, and that, I think, resonates with you, Councillor Phillips, too. What do we need to do to start moving this forward? I'm not sure. At this point, I don't know if this is the answer, but we know that what we have been doing, which is nothing, isn't working. So, thank you.
So, I'm not opposed to the JDA. I think it needs more specific direction, in my opinion, before we just launch forward and start going. I think it takes time for developers to finance things and move forward with projects. I would like to continue to see incentives for in-town development and highway commercial, because that directly reflects what happens in our community. If you look at the little map that was provided from that 71-page report, it was like one of the first 2 or 3 pages. There's a lot of area within the town of Rocky Mountain House that's not developed yet. And I don't want to mention any specific names, but we've had a number of conversations about different areas that would be perfect for highway commercial, that would be perfect for some industrial and residential. And I would really like to see the town to continue to find out how we can improve our development process and keep encouraging incentives. Now, maybe the incentive is that we have this JDA in place, and then if they build, then there's, gives the impression that it's more favorable to develop right now. I'm not sure where that is. A JDA is a long-term process, and so it certainly wouldn't hurt looking at it. I think we need to do like a more specific look at, I know you're saying shovel-ready, but we know that there's a housing shortage. Maybe, where are we going to start looking at that, and also which direction we're going to go in. And again, I would like to see, if some of the reasons are processes and red tape that we can reduce and help. Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. So if the specific question is, are you in favor or not in favor of the JDA the way it is today? My first thought is, no, I'm not. It's too far removed from our community. They've done the Metal Dog subdivision out there, and it hasn't taken off in big time, hasn't got a lot of traction. Where if you look at the Paderni subdivision, it's quite the contrary. So, to me, one of the biggest things in development is location, location, location. And unfortunately, I'm not struck on the location that this JDA takes us. I think it answers questions in terms of maybe having some land. But people who develop businesses often want exposure, sight lines, ease of access, all that. And that subdivision or that area, unfortunately, I don't think gives us any of that. And I guess my answer is, I think it needs to get relooked at and possibly going in a different direction. I think that there is major opportunities to go in a different direction. And to Councillor Phelps' point, I think we as a town need to get involved. I think we need to look at a P3 or P2, but preferably a P3, and see what we can get going within the parameters of the town. So that's my thought and at this point.
So, Councillor Chappelle, I have the same thing. I have written down here on highway commercial in like really bold lettering that that's one of the things we'd like to see. And if you look at the existing JDA, it doesn't meet those criteria. I think 752, there's some, but Highway 11, we know the provincial government is going to be investing millions and millions into Highway 11, and nothing is addressed in this current JDA. So I would like us to see us do a JDA, but maybe, like Councillor Chappelle says, in a little bit of a different direction. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you. So I look at, some of the work we've done with tax incentives. We've created that tax incentive bylaw. We've changed the offsite levies, where the offsite levies are now paid backloaded as opposed to front-loaded. So we've done some really good things to encourage development in town. But we need to go that one step further. We need to look at a P2 or P3 or the JDA, whatever it may be. We need to look at it, and we need to look at it seriously and pick a direction and go in that direction. We need this land for the future of the community and the future of children and grandchildren. We need to have growth, and this is a way to do it. If we wait for the developers to do it, we've seen what that track record is over the last 20 years. It's not happening. So I would like to see us look at this and seriously look at it with a P2 or P3, and how can we make it happen? How can we talk to some of the existing landowners in town? How can we make things move? Because I know of 3 businesses in town that would build now if there was a place to do it. There isn't a place to do it, so they're hamstrung. So I think this is something that we really need to look at, and it'll increase our tax base, and we're not going to be pulling off the same residential and commercial tax base that we have now. If we create new tax base, that gives us new opportunity to do new things in town. So I really think, and I'll keep saying the 3 words, shovel-ready land, I think we need to really look at this, and we need to do something now and not push it off to future discussions and future endeavors. We need to look at it now.
I hear you loud and clear, Councillor Phillips.
That was my goal, was to be heard loud and clear.
You've repeated that the same way. So do you have, just for the benefit of the discussion, any ideas of looking at the map that we've all reviewed? Do you want to just go back, because this didn't happen, right? Do you have ideas on how we could tweak this to maybe get some discussion going about, you can say shovel ready 100,000 times, doesn't mean that it's going to put us in the direction that's going to trigger everybody's, creative discussion.
So to me, and I'm not advocating for either one of these, no, please don't take it that way.
Nope.
But I look at the Haskell land out by 598.
Mm-hmm.
That's land that could be developed into commercial, light industrial, and some residential lots.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the Kennedy land south of Tim Hortons.
So if you look on the little map, Haskell's already in town. That's where we go back to
Yes.
our incentives.
Yes.
Okay.
However, that land has sat vacant for 20 years now. Is it time that we reach out and become a partner
Okay.
in that piece of land. Is it time we reach out to south of the Tim Hortons on Highway 11? Is it time that we reach out and create partnerships? That's what I'm getting at. I'm
Okay.
not saying we need to go to the blue areas and do that. We do have land in town, but it's owned by private individuals, and maybe it's time we need to figure out what it takes to partner, or what it takes to create an incentive for them to develop. We need to have those serious conversations, and we need to do it so that we can get some land.
So with the JDA, it would be county zoned land. Are you thinking specifically in those two directions then, to the east, say past the graveyard, and the south, past Tim Hortons, that you want to talk about, or because everything that you just described is in town already, right? And so it wouldn't be a JDA necessarily, would it, Mr. Kraus? I'm confused. I thought JDA was between the county. Is a JDA between any partner? I thought that was just a P3.
The JDA is an agreement with the county, but even in the JDA, you're looking at private developers to develop the land. The JDA is just to run services out there, improve roadways, to allow it to be developed. But it's still private landowners that would develop the land.
So, just to clarify, because I'm just stuck on a JD versus like what we've already been talking about the last little while, is that on the map from 2017, like the red one, or the red and blue, just for an example, we would have JDAs on the gray area that's already in town, and we wouldn't have to partner with the county. We would just do like P2s and P3. A P2 is us and the developer, right? A P3 would be us, the developer, and possibly like a service provider or another institution. Can you clarify that for me?
So, Your Worship, just for clarification, you're looking at the drawing that has gray, red, and blue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that drawing, so the gray is the existing town.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The red under the JDA is a future annexation area for the town as we grow.
So that's currently zoned as the county of Clearwater is in the red, right?
Yeah, it is within Clearwater County, but it's just identified as future annexation for the town.
Okay.
The blue is the JDA area where the agreements come into place.
Okay.
So under the JDA agreements, and I know it does get a little convoluted, but for the infrastructure to run through the red, that, I believe under the JDA was 100% town for infrastructure. Then when it goes into the blue, I think it's a percentage between the town and county, but it remains the town utility service that we would maintain and collect utility fees off of. And in exchange for that, the county would do a tax share agreement with the town. I can't recall if it was 25 or 50% in the actual agreement. So that's the benefit to the town. And plus, it's also a benefit to the county because then that's a new development area for them. I do know the county has invested several $1 million in land by the airport. That was in anticipation of the JDA. That's where they have a quarter section of land, I believe, out there, where they have their salt shed now, and that was supposed to be the future location of their admin building, if I recall right. So I guess, for the item that's before council today, the first question is, does council want to enter into discussions with the county on the JDA? And maybe it's not this version, maybe it's a different version. But to do that, we'd go to ICC. But to have any fruitful talks on it, all those engineering costs would need to be updated. So us and the county would have to cost share in the updating of those engineering costs for an engineer to do. And then reviewing the agreements. Does it still work between these two councils? Because those agreements were negotiated between councils 2 terms ago. So, I think that's the item for today, or what the agenda item is anyway. I mean, the discussion on approaching private landowners in town, I mean, that's probably a separate discussion, but one that the town should definitely have.
Counselor Hutchinson, you've been waiting quite a while. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. That's not everything that I had in my notes, but that was something that I was going to say, that the discussion that's in front of us today is in regards to the JDA as this contract is, as it came from a request out of the ICC meeting. The other issues, definitely, we need to have conversation back to our strategic planning and our visioning of our community, and what do we see, how do we see it now, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years down the road. So whether that's, addressed in an upcoming agenda item under our strategic planning, or if that's service level, or if it's just a whole day workshop, something along that line. But again, just to remind us that we're focusing on the JDA for this particular item.
So just to move us forward a little bit, I hear you. Are you in favor of looking at this blue JDA, or maybe having a different conversation so we can move forward with this discussion?
Well, the request is the request for decision is to inform us, just like CEO Kraus had said, is this something that council feels we want to look at the blue area and see if it's to go forward? Do we want to put forward a motion to have numbers updated on what it's going to cost? Or is it something we don't even want to bring up to, back to the ICC until we've had a bigger conversation?
Okay, so we'll move forward then. Counselor Alt.
If there's no specific questions, I'd like to just make a motion to move this along a little bit, and just be that we accept this for information and bring this discussion back to service level as far as P2 and P3 development for in town.
Counselor Ald, can I make and get you to separate that into two motions? Because I think we could talk about P2 and P3 before service level. And so can I request a separation of your motion?
This, I would have to ask admin because this is just strictly regarding the JDA, so I would just accept that for information.
Okay, so you're going to adjust your motion then?
No. I would accept this for information and bring some P2 and P3 information back to the service level for discussion.
Okay, so I would like that split, so that we accept this for information, and then we can do P2 and P3 separately. Because
So, Your Worship, then you just make the motion to.
so I would like to make the motion to separate this into two parts. Please. Any questions or comments on that motion? Okay, so I'll call that to a vote, that we split it into two parts. All in favor of that motion? Any opposed? And so that's carried.
I didn't see all.
Okay, yeah, I know you give me a funny look, but I'm like, I was watching.
No, I didn't see all that.
So I'm like, are you questioning my counting? Okay, so now we'll go and we'll have a vote on the first part of the motion. Be it resolved that council accepts the JDA discussion and historical documents as information. Any questions or comments on that motion? Counselor Ald, your light is on. Did you have I just wanted to check. Counselor Phillips?
No,
Oh, sorry. Counselor Chappelle. I should know that name by now.
No problem. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, I'm just confused on what the two motions are. I understood the first one that Councillor Ald made.
Well, he wants to,
And then the second one is about the P2 and P3
In-town discussion.
in-town discussion.
but he wants to do it on service level.
Okay.
That's in
I wanna talk-
October.
okay. When time comes, I want to talk against that.
Okay, so we'll do
motion.
that next, because I do one at a time. Counselor Moosker, you have a question about the first motion?
About the first motion, yeah, I just, I don't know, I'd rather not just accept it for information.
Okay.
Um,
So by accepting it for information, we're just not keen on exactly repeating this previous discussion. So we're accepting it for information, we're not making any decisions on it right now, we're gonna just put a pin on it, and then we can, and then his other motion is to look at other options.
Okay, thank you.
And please correct me if I'm incorrect on that explanation. Okay, so now we're gonna go, be it resolved, any, no, that's okay. Is there another question about the first part of the motion? That we're accepting this for information and moving forward in the discussion?
We voted on the first motion already, correct?
No, we voted on splitting it. Now we're gonna vote on the first motion.
Got you, okay. Okay,
Any
so-
questions or comments about the first motion, splitting?
So yes, I do. When this JDA was done, I don't know, 2016-ish, 2015, it's been quite a while since that's been done. Highway 11 twinning wasn't part of this discussion back in 2015 because it didn't exist. It does exist now. I think a JDA discussion is something to have, but does it look like this, or does it look different?
Right.
Because things have changed in the last 10 years. So accepting it as information kind of tables it. I would still like to have some discussion on the JDA because maybe it changes. Maybe it
Okay.
changes to something different. That's my concern about it, that's all.
Yeah, so I wanted to split it because I don't want to talk about the blue part, and he wants to wait till service level to talk about anything else. So this top part puts a table on the blue part. We can talk about a JDA on a different area and a P2 and a P3 in a second motion. But the top motion is the historical documents that we just said we don't really want to go that direction. We need to do something, but maybe that's not for us. Why not? Counselor Chappelle, or maybe Mr.
Yeah,
Kraus?
so for clarification, Mayor, so accepting for information means that we're doing nothing with it.
With the historical documents of
That's
the
it,
blue
we're not
stuff.
bringing it to ICC, we're not doing anything with it,
With the historical blue documents.
with the JDA itself in its entirety.
Well, then I misunderstood what's going on.
So if you wanted to go back to ICC to talk about options to the JDA, then that would be the resolution.
Okay, but that's not what his
No,
resolution
I'm just
says.
suggesting, yeah.
So we could make a second resolution after this or not? Okay, so are we gonna talk about the blue stuff? That's what we're voting on. Ready?
No.
So I'm gonna go to him first because I took Mr. Kraus before Counselor Chappelle. Counselor Chappelle, we can make a second motion after this, okay?
I just want to speak against the motion.
Okay,
Because I think that there's been valuable work done, and I totally agree with Councillor Phillips here. Let's keep, even if the motion is slight, let's not lose that motion. Let's keep it sort of going. Get information. Are they prepared to look at a different document? I don't agree with the agreement. The concept has some merit, but I don't agree with the agreement. So we can, are they prepared to look at the agreement? I mean, there's some questions out there before we even go anywhere. So I guess where I'd be is prepared to do a second motion if this one's defeated.
okay. I'm gonna just go to Counselor Ald.
Yep.
Did you want to amend your motion?
Yeah, I can amend the motion. I am not in favor of the JDA as it stands, so if it means bringing it back for new discussion, that's one thing, and new agreements, but the JDA as it stands, I am not in favor of. So if we can amend it to bring back a different scenario to the ICC, but as far as the JDA is, I think it's a dead information.
So can I make a suggestion about your motion? That we accept the JDA historical documents and set time to discuss with ICC, a JDA discussion moving in a different direction. That encompasses kind of what you mean, is that more fair?
No, not really, because we need to decide on in-house before we go to ICC what we would be looking at for a discussion to take to ICC.
Okay, so let's do one thing at a time then. I'm gonna go back to the blue. Anybody want to do the blue? That's what we're talking about right now. Or do you want to go with the amended motion and have, like, we just don't have anything to discuss with ICC with that motion that you've presented, because it doesn't have anything to bring back to ICC?
That's right, because we as a council don't know what we're doing. So there's nothing to discuss with ICC yet.
So do you want to undo your amendment and we'll just get rid of the blue stuff and then make another motion that we're gonna come have a discussion about the JDA and then bring that to council? To ICC? I'm stuck on where to move here because the motion isn't clear. Go ahead, Mr.
Your worship,
Kraus.
to keep it simple and following procedure, so the motion was on the table, the motion got split, so that motion is still there.
'Kay.
So for.
Clarity.
For clarity, council, from what I'm looking or understanding, is that vote on that motion for acceptance of information and defeat it, and then you can discuss the clean motion.
Okay, sorry, I'm just looking at the board up there and that's
Yeah.
what's confusing me. So I'm gonna go back to the very, very first, like Mr. Kraus said, all in favor of that motion? I'm calling it now, so
Sorry, the motion is accepting this for information.
the historical
Okay.
stuff for information. Okay? Any questions or comments on that motion? All in favor of that motion? Yes, you're in favor of that motion. You don't want to do the blue part and you want to bring another motion to say we're going to talk about it and bring it to ICC. No, 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 no.
No, we need to,
We need to defeat this motion so you can make a new motion.
but you said in favor. and
Sorry.
had that.
No, no, we need to accept this motion. Oh, no, we defeat it. Yeah, sorry. No, I'm all mixed up. That's why you got confused the way I voted. Okay, all in favor of this motion? And any opposed of this motion? Okay, that motion is now defeated. And would somebody like to make, no, now I have to go to the second part. The second part is that we are going to wait to service level to talk about the P2 and P3. That was the original thing I split, because I don't want to wait till, I don't want to wait till service level to talk about P2s and P3s. I think we should talk about it now. So the motion on the table is, Laura, quit clicking. You're changing color. Oh, sorry. Sorry. It's changing colors and, the motion on the table then is be it resolved that council instructs administration to bring some P2 and P3 information and discuss it at service level. Now I can open up for questions and comments on that motion. Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm voicing my opinion against this motion. I think it's critical we talk about it sooner than later. Leaving it to our
Service level.
service level is too far down the road, so I'm against this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Chappelle. Councillor, you are Councillor Phillips.
Yes, when I woke up this morning, I was Counselor Phillips. I think I still am.
You might change in the next 15
So,
minutes.
yeah, I agree that this is something we need to discuss before service level, that's all.
Thank you for your patience, Councillor Ald.
I'm fine with bringing it back. Before then, I just don't think with administration and the way our workload is, in the next 2 months, we're gonna move forward on this. I think we need a lot of information, and I don't think they're gonna be able to bring that back in the next month.
Can I ask Mr. Schwader a question? Mr. Schwader, have you not already been talking to some of these developers about developing some of this land within town boundaries and got some feedback from them about what we can do besides our regular encouragement that we've already passed to make this happen?
We have, Your Worship.
Do you already have any information you could present to us at a future meeting before service level that's already kind of in the works?
Probably not as, what I said on April 18th, I think the meeting in April or whatever, as far as the developers wanting to sit down or able to sit down, they would.
Okay, that was all my questions. I just wanted to see if there was already something on the books, right? So, Counselor Auld, did you want to amend your motion, or would you like it to stand? Because then it's still on the table, and I have to deal with that before I can do anything else.
I'll let it stand and we can vote on it. It just, for me, talking to the landowners and going down that road hasn't been working. We need to, as a council, decide we are going to get in the game and we're going to promote it and we're going to get involved and we're going to be a partner in this. We need to have those discussions, and it's going to be very costly to do. So I'm not willing to jump right into it without seeing those costs and what it's actually what we're going to be responsible for. I don't think the incentives are working. They've definitely been a boost, but we need to talk about getting in the game of developing, and whether it's a P2 or a P3, we need to know what we'd be willing to put into the game and move forward. So
Okay,
that's where I say I don't know if administration has enough time between now and service level.
Okay, so the motion is going to stand, and I see you turned yours off. Am I correct on that, or did you, yes? Because I know he's got his light on, but you had yours on, and then just wanted to clarify.
All I had put it on for, I just wanted to ask admin if they did feel like maybe there was time to have a bigger conversation about this before service level.
I mean, we definitely need more conversation with council, because we as administration don't know what you're envisioning for a P2 or P3. And before we can have any type of, good talks with these private land developers, we have to know what council is willing to do. Are we putting in all the infrastructure and get paid back when the lots sell, or is it a 50-50 on the infrastructure and so forth? So those are the discussions we would need from council. And what's that dollar value? And what land are you looking at? Because industrial, it could be a gravel road. So, we could,
Yeah.
or highway commercial, well, that's a higher standard of development. And so we don't even know where council wants to target this. So I think there needs to be a lot more discussion with council of where council wants to go with it. And then we have to look at the finances and how prepared are we to put up a couple of $1 million, and what does that do to our 10-year capital plan and our reserves and so forth. So that's probably your next step in discussion, is just, and that, with council, so.
I just have a follow-up.
Yes,
Sorry.
no, absolutely. It's a good question. It was a good question.
So in regards to the motion, whether it passes or is defeated, could another motion be made that we bring to a future regular council meeting before service level to have those conversations? And then at least it's
Yes.
ready for,
Yeah.
if we've come to some kind of,
Yes, and I would recommend to council that it's a closed session,
Yes.
because we'll be dealing with discussions on private landowners.
yeah, no, I agree fully. Okay, thank you.
You have a question on the motion, or can
No,
we go
just-
forward?
Just some comments that I think for service level, that's where we want to have some dollars and cents sorted out for service level, so we know how it's going to impact the 2025 budget. But to back up before that, we probably have to have at least one or two discussions before that, so that administration does understand our direction, where we want to go, what we want to do. So that's all I'm saying, is service level is probably where we'll make the decision, but we need some conversations before that just to provide direction, so we know what the dollars and cents of this will be.
Thank you. So I'm going to call this motion to vote. All in favor of bringing it back at service level? I'm calling the vote now. All in favor of the resolution? And any opposed to the resolution? Oh, do you want me to call it again? No, that's fine. Okay, so that motion has been defeated. And so now we are open to so I'd like to make a motion that council has a discussion in closed session in a future meeting to see how we can partner with a P2 or P3 with developers. Is that?
Just potentially a friendly amendment, the
Yes.
P2, P3, and JDA in a different form.
I think we should have maybe a separate JDA talk with the county, you know what I mean? Like, one thing is for like in town that's already zoned, and another thing is totally, we could have two talks. Would you, we could make another motion. I could add to my motion and that we have a separate meeting to talk about the JDA.
Okay.
Would you be happy with that?
Yep.
Okay. I don't think they're together, I think they're two things. Any questions on that motion? I haven't put a date on it. Do you want a date on it? I
Worship,
don't
you
think I
can
want to
ha-
wait till August 20th. Can we do it sooner than that?
I think July 16th provides us ample time.
I would put July 16th on that motion. Okay. Any questions or comments on that motion? Councillor Chappelle?
I would like to split this motion into two. I'm not sure if I have to make a motion to have that happen.
Okay, so I will amend that to back to my original motion about not talking about the JDA and put that separately. Would you be happy with that?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to my original motion and say that's on July 16th. And then somebody can make a second motion about the JDA. Maybe Councillor Phillips, maybe. Okay, any questions on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that motion is carried. So while we're still here, would anybody else like to make another motion?
I would like to make a motion that we bring the JDA, further JDA discussion to the July 2nd meeting, because I think that's something that needs to be discussed before the other meeting.
When is the next ICC meeting?
There's not one planned yet.
Just a question. Thank you for
More than
answering
likely
that.
fall.
So there's
Yeah,
not
more
one
than
until the
likely.
fall. I'm sorry, because
Probably
no
fall.
one could hear you.
Maybe.
Yeah. Thank
So,
you.
Just for council information, we'll need an ICC meeting probably before the end of June or early July, simply because the airport tenders.
Okay,
So-
so here's a question. Can we, today is June 10th, is that right? June 11th, today's June 11th, and you think we're gonna, could we have a JDA discussion next week and then put it on the ICC discussion before the end of the month? Is that too fast? I think maybe,
Just looking at my fellow councilors, I'm not sure if that gives everybody enough time to come up with topics of discussion. I don't know.
okay. I'm just, rather than waiting till September, that's, if we can talk about it sooner, then we get on it sooner, but. Counselor Hutchinson, your light is on?
Thank you. That was going to be my question is what is council requesting? What kind of materials, what are we looking for to have staff provide us for another JDA discussion? Or are we just bringing back what's in front of us? So maybe clarity on the motion as to what, because just to blanket say JDA discussion with no background, what are we going to be discussing?
Well,
I think it would, sorry, I think it would just be discussing if there's any
interest.
interest on the county side to redo it in a separate area. And then if there is, then that could always come back, at least maybe start the discussion, and then we know for ourselves when we want to talk about our options, whether the county has any interest in potentially changing location for it.
So, if we made a motion today that said we want to talk about the JDA and feel out the county, do we have to have a discussion about that? We already know we want to feel them out or get their input, and and do something different, or do we want more specifics that we're going to present to them? Counselor Phillips?
To me, before, before going to an ICC meeting, I would think we would want some type of direction or some type of ideas or something to bring to them, as opposed to, what do you think?
Okay.
And there's nothing to it, so.
This motion is for council discussion. We're not talking anything about ICC at this point in time. We're just for our discussion only, correct?
Correct. If there's no further questions or comments on July 2nd, you're happy with that date? Okay, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion on the table? And any opposed? And so that motion is carried. And so, with that being concluded, is there any further motions for this agenda item 7.4? Seeing none, before we move on, I'll do a brief recess for 10 minutes. And we'll see you back in 10 minutes for 7.5.
P2, but I just didn't know with the P3 who the third. Unless it's developer.
She's gonna start. Thank you very much. We're just having a lively discussion about what P3s and P2 means. So moving forward in the agenda today, we are at 7.5. The Landmark Public Engagement Plan. And so I see we have Ms. Button in front of us today, and she's gonna start the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I am here before you today to talk about your landmark concept and project. So at your last meeting, was it really as recent? Yes, it was your last meeting. A couple of meetings ago, we said I was looking for direction on the landmark. Council was also finding its way forward on the landmark, and Councillor Shippold made a resolution which passed, which said let's consult the public a little bit. A couple of weeks later, we had Councillor Musker, who raised the valid and important point of our Parks Canada facility just 5 minutes west of town, and so we have built that into this plan as well a little bit. So there's really two prongs here. One is that administration has those conversations with Parks Canada and the local management of the National Historic Site about what synergies may exist there in that would be mutually beneficial to growing our tourism sector with, I guess, building on the capital that Parks Canada brings, which is significant. And the other one is asking our community what that essence is for them. That means Rocky Mountain House. So I'd have to give credit to my colleague who put together the public participation plan, part of this, with regards to how we might go about it. It will feel pretty similar to, in terms of the delivery, to what we've done in the past in terms of getting it out in our newsletters and social media, print and broadcast media, and also, of course, having hard copies available here at the town office. The one thing that we're going to try a little differently with council's support is having a two-phased, two-step, I guess, public engagements. So we asked some really basic questions, give us an idea, what does Rocky mean to you? And then, do you want to tell us more? And people who are engaged and have more thoughts can go on and complete the second phase of that questionnaire. And that, hopefully, will change the discussion from, as you've seen with the Civic Building most recently, which actually had quite a few similar questions. You were asking for, what's the iconic piece of Rocky that you would like to see? Is there something you would like to see? And there's a lot of, no, absolutely not. And the commentary doesn't go farther than that. So this proposal that we have before you today gives residents the option to, if they have more to say, we've got a few guided questions, open-ended questions, for them to put that on paper for council's review.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? Deputy Mayor Caprero.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say that for myself, I liked the idea of having the two parts for the survey. And I was happy with the questions. I was happy with the way things were worded and all that. So I am happy with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other, Councillor Musker? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I love it too. I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be it resolved, the council direct administration to meet with Rocky Mountain House National Historic Site Management to discuss collaboration opportunities.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And that's none, and that's carried. Thank you very much. So that concludes seven. Oh, I apologize, sorry. Counselor Hutchins, did you have a question or comment, or
No, I was going to make the motion.
go ahead?
Thank you. Just thank you to staff as well. Like Councilor Capero said, it's a good process to go forward with, and appreciate the work that's been done. Be it resolved that council proceed with the Landmark Project Public Engagement Plan as presented.
Counselor Phillips.
So, yes, just a comment. I'm not sure if we have enough of a, I don't know if you can call it a preamble as to how this discussion came to be, as opposed to just going out and asking the questions. And sometimes when we give them some of the background as to why and how this came about, that it may change some of the discussion.
So, Ms. Button.
Yes, I think the preamble you're looking for is right there in the public participation plan in terms of what's the purpose and what is the project background. What was included in the previous two reports that you've seen on the 4th and the 21st of May will also inform that preamble that goes out to public.
So I just want to clarify, because last time we had a conversation, and we're doing public consultation about the landmark stuff, but I feel strongly that the Helen Hunley Wall is a really good representation of our community and a public landmark, and so just curious, you know, if we partner with the, you know, how much further we need to go into this process, and if this is really the direction that we need to go in. If, you know, when we think about our community, we already have that landmark. Do we need to?
That's really for council's discussion. It's here because council asked for this.
Yep. So
yeah.
it's not a question to you. It's
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ms. Button. It's not a question to you. It's a question to council about the process that we're in, right? Yeah. I'm Councillor, or Deputy Mayor Capero had her light on, and then I'll go to Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I don't think there's any harm in at least putting the survey out, and at least that way we can see what the results are of that, and then we'll have further discussion. And maybe it is something that we talk about the Helen Hunley Wall, but at least having the survey and having the feedback, it gives us something to build on.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I think if you go into draft survey number 2, there's the opportunity, the open-ended questions. Do you have any specific suggestions for design or features of the landmark? As well as the next question about concerns and issues, and those are all open-ended for people to be able to put their response. And you know, it may be overwhelming that that particular landmark is the one that people feel is important, and it gives them the opportunity to put their own suggestions or something that's existing.
But it doesn't really say in there that the public don't want to spend money on that, and they would just rather keep what we already have as their landmark, or that's what they're going to have the opportunity to do if they go through to step 2.
You raise a good point, Mayor, and I'm not sure where best we could fit that into. Because at this point, it's really just a concept that council has. And I know when you have your strategic plan discussion, in terms of what the essence of Rocky Mountain House is for people and what we build on, which is why Communications took this as an opportunity to maybe get 2 birds with 1 stone. One, obviously input for the landmark, but also question 5 in the first survey, describe the identity of the town. And we're optimistic that that's going to yield some really good feedback that council can use to focus its strategic direction from as well.
Could we have a question in there that posed something like, do you feel that Rocky already has landmarks, you know, that we're known by, the view of the mountains, the Helen Hunley, the town office facade, Main Street, you know, like, I'm just curious, and then you could put other or no, we definitely need one, like, that would be an opportunity to sort of like get a feel for, you know what I mean?
Wordsmithing on the spot, but perhaps the question could be, what existing feature or aspect of the town do you consider a landmark or an iconic piece?
That would, you know, have some, it helps to have direction of what the public would like us to do, which is the whole point of this process, right? So Councillor Ald's been patiently waiting.
Thank you. I think it's important to get the public perspective and ask a few more questions possibly. I have my own opinion. I'm holding on to that until I see the results back from this survey, whether or not the residents of town want to push this forward or not. I don't want to have the questions posed that we're pointing anybody in a different direction. I want to make sure that everybody gets more open-ended questions, the better. But yeah, I would be in support of seeing what the residents would like to see going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, my comments are somewhat similar. I just want to make sure that we're not leading the participants in going down a certain rabbit hole. I like it keeping open so that we can have ideas, period. I think if we start asking specific questions, we may point them in a direction. I just would hate to see that happen.
Perfect. So we'll leave it up to you, what you've heard from everybody on council now. And so I believe that there's a motion on the table. Is that right? Yes. So if there's no further questions or comments about the motion, sorry, it wasn't Councillor Caprera, or it was Councillor Hutchinson that made the motion. Is that correct? So I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And none, and that's carried. So thank you very much. So now we can move forward in the agenda to 7.6, the McNutt Subdivision Engagement Plan. Miss Button.
We're going to tag team this.
Yeah. So thank you, Your Worship. So council has passed a motion in requesting that the town have a town hall meeting with the residents of McNutt in September. So with that, I asked Ms. Button to prepare a public engagement plan. And part of it, what I asked her to do, is to do a preliminary questionnaire or survey of the residents of McNutt. Basically find two questions: what do they enjoy about their neighborhood, and what are some concerns? And the purpose of that is just to provide us with information on what some of the concerns are, so we can be prepared and have the information for the town hall, because we sure don't want to go in front of them and then be surprised by a question but not have the answer for them. So we're just bringing this forward to council for consideration of the plan. And if you want to speak on the engagement plan?
Yeah, so because this is kind of straddling the level 1 and level 2 consultation, so we're going to use a whole host of the tactics we have at our disposal. They're highlighted for you in your agenda package. Financial considerations, the room booking and poster boards, whatever materials are prepared, are well within both the advertising and council's public relations budgets, so there's no concerns for administration there. The MGA is quite clear that public meetings must be open to the public, so we cannot restrict it to McNutt residents. It will certainly be targeted to McNutt residents, but we will have to meet that advertising requirement and let people know that this meeting will be happening. So our plan is this month to send out a letter to all residents, property owners in McNutt subdivision, which describing what council has this question on the table for them, and they want to hear from you. Could you please complete this brief questionnaire so we can be better able to answer your questions in September? We will spend July and August administration summarizing those responses and then tailoring the information package for that meeting based on what the residents hear. And then we advertise as per the MGA. And then we've got a town hall meeting proposed date Wednesday, September 4th. Council asked for an evening, and so we have the room, the subway room at the Rocky Regional Recreation Center booked. Because this is really a council initiative, we feel it's really important that mayor and council lead it off. So we'll draft some speaking notes for you, Mayor, to introduce, and then we'll provide a summary of the engagement and the feedback that we heard from McNutt residents. History of the subdivision as well. We expect we will have some questions about that, take questions from the floor, and then lots of opportunity for those informal conversations between councillors and residents, with administration there to help assist you in your roles and answering any technical questions. According to this plan, that would all come back to you on September 17th for you to decide on your next steps.
Does anybody have any further questions for Ms. Button? Councillor Chappelle.
Your worship, to Ms. Button, and that would be with question number 1.
Sure.
There's 3 questions there, and
Oh, is there? Sorry. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
so the first one is like, what do you love, like, about living in McNutt? And it's like, you know, I look at how I'd answer that if it was on my street, and I'm just not sure what I'd expect for an answer. So I'm not sure if it has any merit to even ask that question. What do we expect to gain from it? I guess if anything, the question could read, what are your concerns? Period. I think that's what we're looking for. What are your concerns? Not so much, well, what do you know, I just don't know what we're going to get by that question. I'm, you know, maybe if I get some clarification as to what we anticipate the answer is going to be, because, hey, you're going to like it because of the area you live in, you know, large lots, whatever. I just don't see as a relevant question to us getting what we're looking for.
Yeah, Your worship, I can probably answer that for Ms. Button. So in reviewing the history of McNutt and recognizing it's a very unique type of subdivision. So, you know, going back to 1992 when McNutt subdivision was starting to be developed, the developers came to town council and wanted to do a country residential type of development within the corporate limits. And that request was for it not to be developed to urban standards, with paved roads, street lights, and so forth. Council of the day approved that type of subdivision, recognizing it's probably unique, but they also put the caveat on it. If that subdivision ever wanted, you know, urban standard improvements such as paved roads or street lights, it would have to be through a local improvement and paid by the landlords. That was the resolution of council. So the council of the day decided to have this unique type of subdivision within an urban corporate limits. So I think what the question number 1 does is recognizing that it's a unique type of subdivision. What do you like about it? And is it because you don't have any street lights? Is it because of the country feel to that subdivision? So I think that's important, just knowing the history of how it was developed.
Then the question could be worded, what do you like, what do you don't like?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that the question is too open-ended, and I don't think we're going to get anything out of it. We need to be more, I think, to the point of what the questions might be. Like the other 2 ask specific questions. This one, number 1 doesn't. Like number 2 is, hey, is there anything else? Or number 3 is there anything else? But I question the number 1's, what the request is. And if we might not be more to the point of, hey, what do you like, what do you don't like?
Do you want to word it maybe to make you happy that still goes along lines of what are the benefits of living in McNutt Estates? No, okay, just, Councillor Caprero, or Deputy Mayor Caprero?
Thank you. I like having question number 1 in there and allowing people to say what they like about living there. For some residents that live in there, maybe they don't want to see a change. Maybe they like the way that it is, and so it gives them the opportunity and us as council to see maybe there's people in there that want zero change. Maybe they like it just as it is. And so I think it's important for us to get that feedback and hear both sides of the equation, not just questions directed at what do you want to see improved, because maybe some are happy with it the way it is.
Go back to Councillor Chappelle.
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship, and to Councilor Capero. That question, I agree 100% with what, if we're looking for that answer, I don't think that question's going to get us that answer. That's in number 1. That's my fear, because that's exactly what I want to get. What do you like? I don't think that question's going to give us that fruit.
Okay, Councillor Caprero.
I respectfully disagree.
Okay. So is there any other questions about the survey itself or the process? I don't see any, so, I'm happy with the date and time, and I think a survey is important. I always find, as the person, writing a survey, it's hard with open-ended questions to put down, like, your thoughts, but I think it will work. So I'm ready to move forward. Councillor Auld?
I do have a question, thank you. In the recommendations, it keeps referencing subclass consideration and subclass assessment models. But we haven't made that decision that that's the route we're going to go with creating a subclass. This is designed to hear what they want, whether they even want a subclass or whether they just want more services. So I don't know, should that be worded that way?
I guess it's worded that way because that has been that's what has centered council's discussion
the
and what
original
it's
motion?
brought through.
Okay.
The original, so, it is to inform your future decision about an assessment subclass, right? And that decision might be no, or that decision might be yes. But from what I heard at this table, 3 meetings ago, it was you can't make that decision until you hear from the public. And so that's where I come in.
So I don't see anything further, and nobody has got their light on, so I'll go ahead and make a resolution so we can move forward in the meeting. Be it resolved that council approve the public engagement plan for McNutt subdivision assessment subclass as presented. Is there any questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, I'll move that forward with a vote. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? And that's none, and so that's carried. So thank you very much for your work on that. And
We'll
we
take
can-
it from here and we'll see you all on the 4th of September.
Thank you very much. So moving forward in the agenda, we have a strategic plan review, 7.7, and I'm going to look to Mr. Kraus. Is that,
Yeah, so thank you, Worship. So this is at the request of council. Council passed a resolution that council will review their 21-26 strategic plan at this meeting. So administration has included, along with where we're at with all the strategies and goals and steps that council want us to take. So we'll leave it for council's discussion.
Councillor Hutchinson? I'll let you maybe
Sure.
share some thoughts.
Just going through the different strategic plan objectives that we have. I mean, you can see through, like the first one, building our local economy, most of that has been completed. Actually, all of them, if you go through. So we're again at the point where what we have for objectives, what we have for on a move forward is getting pretty skimpy. Again, I'll go back to, I'll be a broken record like Councillor Phillips on shovel-ready land, but I will be discussing on vision and on a go-forward basis. The prior conversations we've just had over JDA and land improvements, whatnot in town is a perfect example as why I think this needs to be more than just, us looking at these pretty colors on the page, but to have a full day type workshop on moving forward with our strategic plan.
So, Councillor Hutchinson, do you have any specific ideas that you wanted to add to our strategic plan? Like, this is a working document, so at any time, we can add things, we can take them away. I mean, it's just a living, working document. And so do you have some recommendations that you'd like to see added into our strategic plan? Like, every meeting we go through, like, every item on the agenda clearly outlines how it relates to the strategic plan. Like, if you look, everything we've done today, it relates back to the strat plan, and it can be added and taken away at any time. So it's not like it's not a useful document. I think that it's a good outline and that we can keep moving forward without having to go over the wheel and just keep adding things to agendas that fit in the strat plan.
You're right, we do on a regular basis. We refer back to our strategic plan. What I'm saying is we've got, and it came up in discussion earlier, we don't have a clear direction on where we're going and how we're going. We've completed most, if not on the way to completion. And it's not just my decision to make what to do to go forward. My suggestion is that we sit down and have a vision planning session. And again, it encompasses things like the JDA and the development of land in town. And we don't have details in where we're at. So my suggestion is having a workshop and refocusing on where we are and what our strategic plan actually looks like.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Councillor Hutchinson, I tend to agree that we should look at this. I question a lot of the ones that say completed in them, because in fact, they're maybe in progress, not completed. And so I think what we need to do is have an open dialogue with a facilitator in a room, review what we have now, and possibly add to that, because a lot of this stuff, like one I just picked out on when I read through, was a storefront program, so it's completed. I don't see anything different on Main Street. So is it completed, or is it completed to what place, what place? So when I read this, I think that we need ourselves to make sure that we give administration direction what's going on. So I look at this as a chance, because I've heard around this table, many people say, well, everything is done. And I read it and I go like, I don't think everything is done. So maybe we just need to review this, have a facilitator, and review some of the new things that are up, like the JDA or whatever we have, and have that workshop and just say, hey, is it done or is it not done? Or is it in progress, or where is it at? I mean, this thing is a living, breathing document, and it changes all the time. And so I guess where I'm at is I think that we should look before our service level review at this document to make sure that our minds are queued up about where we want to take the town.
If I may?
Sure, Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. Exactly what you're saying. And maybe that means what we need to do as council is add into our strategic plan those measures, the success measures that we have in place. So the storefront improvement program, yes, we've implemented it. It stays on there, but where are we going? Is it evaluated in 6 months? We've got nothing. What do? We now take it to the next level. We up it by maybe doing a door-to-door campaign on businesses to say, yes, have you participated? This is what we have. So again, yes, they may say completed, but we haven't taken it to the next level to measure our successes.
So if I might, maybe what we need to do is have administration bring back some concrete metrics about the things that we've implemented so that we can review how successful they've been. So if they can look through like their completed and ongoing things, you know, how many more permits were created, how many more developments have been put through since we started some of our things. Maybe that's not the problem, is that we need some metrics to see what we need to add to it, because we, you know, and before we can have that conversation. Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. My question to council would be then, is that not our responsibility to set those measures in place first, so that when staff admin is working on our strategic plan and adding things, checking them off what they've got on our agenda, and again, we need to be giving them the direction and what we want, so that we can say at the end of the day, in 5 years, not even 5, 2 years, whatever it would be, whenever we review our strategic plan, well, we completed it this way, but we haven't measured, we haven't done it anyway. So I think that needs to come from us before we start requesting information on that type of thing from administration. We have to set that plan in place for them to move forward with.
Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Worship. So measures, I think, are critical. I think that gets discussed often. But I think we as council, we come up with a plan, and I think we need to ask administration, what does that mean to you? Because I think they need to tell us, because what does the storefront plan mean to administration? I have an opinion, but maybe they got a different opinion. So I think sometimes we got to be dancing at the same dance party, and I don't think we are often on this stuff. And so I think the challenge is we have to understand how they perceive what we are looking for, and if in fact they align. So we can set measures in, but what if what we're asking for are different than what they think we're asking for? So.
Mr. Kroos.
Sure, I can answer that.
I see your light is on, and so I'm you're going to be my next question anyways.
So if you go to the strat plan and the objectives, council's put in there that to expand the storefront program to all commercial. And that's the direction of MIN. So we redrafted the policy, we brought it back to council, it was approved by council. So it's marked green. Administration has completed the task that council has. So that's when you see green. So is the program still going on? Definitely. Do we have anything in place to measure its success? Well, we just report back to council if there's an application. And I don't know if that's what council wants or they're looking for more. But just to also remind council, we are currently out, we have an RFP out right now for a strategic plan at council's direction. And that closes on June 28th, I believe. And in that RFP, I mean, it'd be up to council whether to award it or whatever, but there's different elements into it that council will probably or can pick from. So there's a pre-public engagement portion to it to see what our citizens are envisioning for the community. There's a 2-day workshop to review the community sustainability plan with council. There's a module for a 2-day strategic planning session with council. Then we've asked for costing for another public engagement after council's finished their strategic plan to go back to the public and say, is this what you think or vision our community to be in the 5-10 years, wherever council takes this strategic plan? So that's coming back to council. Well, it would be the first meeting in July because it closes on the 28th. Just a reminder.
If council would like some metrics on some of the items, would that be something that we could just ask administration to provide us with an outline of some of the metrics of some of the direction that we've already put you in? Like, because we can't decide if a program is, successful. Like, for example, storefront, which we just put that in. because we don't have access to the information unless it's brought to us, you know, in a report, and sometimes that could get missed. Is that possible to have just like a chart with some metrics on it?
Well, your worship, I would probably send that back to council. What do you call a success for the storefront program? I mean, it's council's vision. So we as administration really can't tell council if we've reached your vision or not. You know, for the storefront, maybe it's 5 applications a year, you know, but that's council's vision. Like, what are you trying to achieve by the program? So
Okay.
we would send it back to council for that.
So your suggestion is that we go through this and create some metrics that we could go back and forth on? Like,
Yeah, council is asked to review, yeah, I'm not making any suggestion for council, this is your strat plan. But I mean, if that's an option, maybe you don't want to hire another facilitator, maybe you just want to revisit this one and actually, okay, really what are we trying to achieve with these objectives?
yeah.
It was your original motion, Councillor Schpelt.
I was really hoping it was yours, Councillor Hutchinson. When I looked and seen it was mine, I went, okay. So thank you for reminding me.
So is this something that maybe we want to put on hold until this RFP comes back in, when did you say that was?
July 2nd.
So why it got brought forward is that what I was hearing around the table from a few councillors was, we've already met all the objectives of our strat plan. I've heard that several times. When in my own heart of hearts, I'm going like, well, I don't think so. You know, and, you know, there's things that I anticipated to see happening and they haven't happened. So what does that mean? So I mean, obviously it means something different to administration than it means to me, because after getting explained about the storefront program, administration did what we asked them. But my anticipation of seeing something downtown has not came to reality. And so it's marked completed on here, and so we're going, yeah, we're okay. But in fact, we're not okay. So I put it forward because I don't want to hear everything is done when in fact, I don't think it is done. So to Councillor Hutchinson, I guess what I want is just clarification on this plan. Now, understanding we went out to an RFP, maybe the time is to put this on hold and see what that document comes back at, and then we can determine where we're going at that point. So maybe just a bit of premature, and maybe we just need to wait, and I'd be prepared to do that. But just to be clear, I don't think the things that are marked completed on here are completed from a council perspective. From administration, they are. I'm not so sure they are from at least what I see.
So maybe what we need to see is if what we laid out in the strat plan has been successful, if we are communicating, and we need to maybe put some metrics in there. So maybe that's just something we need to review. After we get this RFP back, we could maybe have a meeting to discuss metrics on our strat plan.
I think there needs to be another column on this document that actually says
Metrics.
successes, metrics, something.
Yeah.
Because if we're not getting anything and we spend all this energy here, maybe there has to be another column saying, these are the wins.
Yeah,
I
because
see.
how do you know if, we can come up with the best strategic plan in the world, but if we don't want to accomplish anything, administration's done exactly what they said. It's like running a flyer, and you're gonna try sell 500 widgets, right? You make up the plan, everybody does it, they send out the cards, you do the whole process, administration does what they're told, and you don't sell any widgets. How do you know if you're successful? You didn't sell any widgets. It's a little harder with this. We made all these policies in place. Is it successful? Do we have to adjust council's direction to administration? We need some metrics.
Just on your last comment about council perspective, which kind of solidifies what I'm saying about taking that next step and visioning, because we as a council don't all have the same perspective. And part of that is not how are we directing admin to follow through with our vision or goals if our perspective is 7 different views.
Yeah, but you could though. We can all get together and say, was the storefront? We could go round and round about what we want to do, but I think what we're trying to say is we need to look back at the strategic plan. We need some metrics in there to see if it's successful, so that when the next council comes along, they can say, we're going to spend money on this because we did that before. It didn't come to fruition. Administration did everything that they were asked to, but it just wasn't a great idea. Councillor Chappelle,
I'm going to make a motion.
thank you.
Let it be resolved that we accept this as information and wait for the RFP to play out. Thanks for doing this, by the way, to administration.
So is there any further questions or comments on the motion on the table? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? And that's carried. So that concludes 7.7, and we're moving on to 7.8, water conservation incentives. And I believe we have Miss Button to talk about rain barrels.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Mayor. So this is arising from the May 21st meeting and Councillor Phillips' administrative inquiry regarding a rain barrel subsidy program. And council liked the look of Old's program, and so we've brought it here for you to have a look at, and including some comments about how it may could be implemented here in Rocky Mountain House. Of note, there is no budget item for it in the 2024 budget. My colleague, Corporate Services Director, did advise that it could be drawn from the water reserves this year. Administration would really recommend you set a cap on it, and so if 2,000, and once that cap is reached, you know, the program is fully subscribed for this year, try again next year, would be. I can't imagine the town would buy enough rain barrels to completely deplete the water reserves, but we still need a cap on it. So we can absolutely administer it. Administration has done things like this before in other capacities. So processing applications, if council chooses to move ahead with it, is pretty straightforward. We would be looking for council's direction, on that cap, maximum limit, whether you want us to continue that going forward in the budget. And then eligibility, utility water account holders in the town of Rocky Mountain House, limit of 1 rebate per household, but we welcome your input. A rain barrel, any type of container that can catch water from a downspout, is the definition that we've proposed based on what we've seen in other places. And then the proof of purchase and installation, so it would be a pretty straightforward application form. You would provide your address and utility, your address. We would make sure that your name and address matches the utility account on file, and proof of purchase receipt, and a photo of the installed rain barrel. The other question for council is whether you want to make it retroactive to
Existing ones.
right, January 2024 or 2016, then maybe I can get mine in there. Or June 1st is the date I threw on here because it was first proposed at the May 21st meeting, and that would capture that. So that's also for your consideration. And then the rebate would be applied as a credit on your utility
Bill.
bill. Sorry, I want to go back to the eligibility. Of note, it's residential water utility account holders, because it is the produced water, the potable water that we treat that we're looking for people to conserve. And so if you're on a well, you wouldn't be eligible for a rebate for collecting water off your roof. And I think those are all the items that we really need council's input for. And then, of course, the big one, do you want to implement it or not?
I have some questions. How many people in Olds participated in this program there?
I don't know that answer. I can find out, though.
I'd just like to know the metrics on success. Counselor, Phillips.
Thank you. So, I mean, all you have to do is look at what happened in Calgary here last week with a ruptured water main that has severely limited the residents' ability to use water. And you look at a program like this where, you know, and hopefully we never have that problem here, but if we ever did have that problem, this would allow residents to still be able to water beds, you know, gardens.
Flower
beds. Flower beds. It's been a long week. Flower beds, gardens, things like that. And also from a provincial point of view, I mean, there is a water shortage going on in this province. So we need to look at the residents living downstream from us, that some of them are having some drought situations. And every bit of water that we can conserve and not take out of the river is allowing more water to be down the river for those municipalities that really need it. For me, I would like to see a cap as far as a dollar amount on this, so that we don't have a free-for-all. Starting June 1st is fine, but I just think it's something that water is becoming a commodity. It's becoming a topic. There's drought years now, and we could have even more drought years ahead. So I think it's just it's something that we should promote.
Counselor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted clarity on the program, because when I read through what Olds does, it sounds like the town doesn't have any inventory of barrels, that you have to go to a store, and they've made an arrangement with their stores to have barrels on inventory, and the actual stores they go and buy it. Then they submit a bill, or a copy of the bill to the town to get their $50 back. That was how I read that. Now, maybe I read that wrong, but I was under the impression that they did not maintain the inventory. It was actually the stores, you know, kept the inventory and looked after it that way. So
Oh, absolutely. The town would not be purchasing rain barrels
Yeah.
for resale
Okay.
whatsoever.
So there'd be zero cost to the town other than the $50 rebate per barrel.
That's correct.
I think it's a no-brainer.
There is one other thing under eligibility. Olds made it very clear that it had to be a new purchase of a new item. I haven't written that into here because if you can get a receipt for it, right? You can find used barrels of various type that can be put into service. So it is a question for council. If you want to put in that must be purchased new eligibility criteria or not. And I reflected on that with our commitment to waste reduction and the fact that, you know, when we picked up our 3 big cubes, we bought them from as a sell-off supply. They weren't new,
Okay.
remanufactured.
Thank you for pointing that
There
out
you
to
go.
us. Counselor Musker.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. You know, I'm not opposed to this, but I think it's a feel-good program. I think for the people that this is important to, they've already got rain barrels, or capturing their roof water. And the incentive, I think, is a reduction in municipal water usage. Are people going to take advantage of this? Sure. But I think people that this is important to have already done it or considering it on their own. So, I don't know, it strikes me as a feel-good plan.
This isn't in our budget at all. Mr. Kroos, it would come out of where?
For 2024, it'd come out of reserves, and then we would budget for it in the 2025 operating budget.
If we ran the program again?
Yeah.
And if we ran the program and took the money out and nobody applied for it, does the money go back into reserves?
The money doesn't come out of reserves until we use it, so it just stays there.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if we say we're gonna take $2,000 out, that's 400 people that could buy a barrel, right? 40 people that could buy a barrel? Thank you. I do better math in the morning. So 40 people could take advantage of this for $2,000. And I agree, I think if you're putting a marine barrel in, you've already done it. So Does anybody want to make a motion at this time to go forward? Counselor Phillips?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that council ask administration to rise and report the rain barrel rebate program to the June 18th, 24 council meeting with a draft policy.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call that to a vote. If there's no further questions or comments, all in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And that motion has been carried. So moving forward in the agenda, we're now at 7.9, Water Management Plan. And I think we brought this up last year. Ms. Button, did you want to?
We're going to tag team again? I'll start it off. Great. So this arose from your April 16th regular council meeting that council directed me to develop a municipal water shortage response plan and bring it to today's meeting. And so that's what we are here before you to show. I think recent events in Calgary that have already been alluded to speak to the need to have this on the shelf in the event something like that happens here. We are very much unlikely for the river to run dry, but we do experience operational difficulties in winter when those conditions are ripe for frazzle ice, which affects our production rate of water. That has in it's not uncommon, every couple of years requires us to do something such as closing the bulk fill, for example. Very rarely do we have to put in restrictions that we see Calgary dealing with right now. But what this does is give us a roadmap of how to do that in the event we must. It also answers the province's direction, which has asked municipalities to have a water shortage management plan ready to go, because they know that the province, particularly the eastern reaches, are going to be pretty dry this year. And so that is why it's here. So working with engineering and operations and parks as well, because they also use water. And we've adapted a plan from another municipality to make it work for our specific operations here. So they're really the three reasons why we'd have to implement it would be drought, frazzle ice, or catastrophic infrastructure failure, and that's what Calgary has on the go right now.
So it also would be a power outage. So for example, we don't have a backup generator, correct? I think that came off the budget last year.
No, so what that project was revised, we put a transfer switch in at the water treatment plant. So if power went out, we would bring in a generator to operate the plant.
But we don't have a generator, we just have the switch, right?
Just a switch, yeah.
So if for whatever reason, it would also be a power outage is what my feeling was in the past, right?
Yes, so it could happen. I mean, power went out, they would take time to get the generator in and up and running again. So you might implement this plan for a 12-hour period, for example.
Yeah, or for some reason the dam didn't have water. Not that the dam
Yeah.
would never not have water.
Yeah, part of this plan is we're monitoring water levels of the North Saskatchewan as well. Yeah.
And a power outage would certainly be that infrastructure failure, so
Yeah.
I think it captures it.
TransAlta had an issue with Edmonton when we were at Alberta municipalities with water, so I like this. I had a question. I didn't see anything in here specifically that was for consumers to, or users in case of a water shortage and you live in a house, things that you would get told.
Yep, so those are.
Like, did I miss it? Like, I know it was a lot of pages to go through. I mean, this is,
Yeah, so I think you would have missed it, but each phase has kind of administration actions and then the water conservation measures. Phase 1 and 2, there are mandatory and voluntary. Those are the voluntary ones, largely for households. But then when you get into phase 3 and 4, we have mandatory restrictions for households.
so one of the things that came up when we were at this meeting, that all this was discussed, was to have just like a quick, simple sheet that could get sent out to households already ready, prepared with things to do, how to flush the toilet, like whatever, so that there would be communication right away? And is that going to be like an addendum, or is that going to be something that's done on the fly? Because it happened in Edmonton, really, and Calgary, the same, like, he already had a shower before he knew the water was shut off that day, right? Like, for example, it takes time to get that communication through, and if it's not already kind of up.
Absolutely, and communication is a big part of this plan. We'd be tapping into our communication resources at every phase. What Mr. Kraus likes about this plan is that it could fit very neatly into our existing municipal emergency plan, which has a whole host of catastrophes that we're prepared for. And so that crisis communication piece is an ongoing part of your communications department's work. So I don't necessarily have that piece ready today, but absolutely, we have templates for emergency and crisis communications, and with this being, if council approves it, one of our plans, then that would be developed in very short order.
Yeah, because like I wrote on the front of my emergency water plan, just to, after reading all these pages, I needed to clarify what was I looking at next, so. Thank you, I look forward to seeing like how we can, address some of the demand issues downstream and make all our residents, aware of water and in the case of emergency. Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you. I was very, very impressed with this document. You guys, staff did a great job. I feel it's covered everything that would come up for us. So having said that, I would make a resolution. Be it resolved that council rise and report the water shortage management plan to the June 18th, 2024 regular council meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hutchinson. If I don't see any questions or comments about that motion, seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion and any opposed, and that's carried. So thank you very much. So that completes 7.9, and we move forward to correspondence for action. We have none. Correspondence for information, 9.1 to 9.4. Is there anything anybody wants to bring forward at this time? Could I have a resolution then? Councillor Hutchinson, are you ready to make a motion on the?
Sure, I didn't realize my light was on though. Sure, I will make the motion to accept items 9.1 through to 9.4 for information.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, 10.1, the Mayor's Activity and Committee Report for June 11th, 2024. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that report? Would somebody like to make a motion at this time? Councillor Phillips.
I will make a motion to accept item 10.1, the Mayor's Activity and Committee Report, as information.
Thank you very much. So I'll call that to vote. If there's no further questions or comments, seeing none, all in favor of the motion? And any opposed? And seeing none, that's carried. So 10.2, Councillor Auld. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Councillor Auld's activity report? Okay, I'll move forward. Councillor Caprero, Deputy Mayor Caprero. Any questions or comments about her report? Seeing none. Councillor Hutchinson, any questions or comments about her report? Councillor Hutchinson, did you want to bring something forward?
Yeah, just a couple things. So the Rocky Community Learning Center is having a tea and an open house for June 18th. That everyone is welcome. I believe it's from 11 till 2. So just, they have these on a yearly basis. Just come in, have a snack, have tea.
Is that in your report?
Yeah.
Can we add that to a calendar event?
Yeah. I can send the email.
Appreciate that.
Everybody. And with Rocky Senior Housing, we had some discussion on the last meeting. There were some questions asked. Anyways, one of the things I wanted to point out was the vacancy rates and how that's affected the revenue stream for the lodge. 2019 at 10%, 2020 was 18%, COVID 2021 at 31%, 2022 was 22%. So that kind of gives you an idea of, right now, we're at 7 rooms, I believe, vacant. So, there was some COVID relief that was given out by the province, but, just by those numbers, you can kind of see why there was an increase in request in the past year and this year as well. So I just wanted to mention those, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hutchinson. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Councillor Musker? Does anybody have any questions or comments for Councillor Phillips? Councillor Phillips?
I just have one point. At the APG conference that I was at in Lethbridge, the Police Act amendment has changed how communities will have policing committees. So now any municipality with a population of 5,000 or over is mandated to have a policing committee. It's not optional anymore, it's mandated. And currently on the provincial side, any of the municipalities that are served with a PPSA will now have some form of a policing committee, whether it's regional policing committees or a provincial one for the provincial side. That will now be mandated from the province as well.
I have a question on that. Does that
Yep.
mean the county has to reinstate their policing committee?
No, the county had what was called CPAC before, which was a policing advisory committee. It wasn't actually a policing committee. It was
Something
it was
different?
something different. So what this is saying that anybody that's covered by a PPSA will have to have some type of a policing committee. They haven't come up with that formula yet, whether it'll be regional policing committees for the PPSA side or it'll be a provincial committee that will deal with all that.
So does that affect our area then? Does it affect Clearwater County or not?
It will affect them in the aspect that they will have a provincial policing committee, and again, will that be provincial or regional for them? That's still to be determined, but it's coming down the pipeline. And also with the Police Act, they updated the complaint system with not just the RCMP, but police bodies in general. And they've basically made complaints into a level 1 through level 5, with level 5 being minor complaints. And level 1 and 2 complaints will now also be investigated by the ASERT, the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team. They will be part of those committees, so just updates to the Police Act. And those are the ones that will affect us.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions for Councillor Phillips? Moving forward, Councillor Chappelle, do you have anyone have any questions for Councillor Chappelle today? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to accept for information all of the councillor reports for June 11th, 2024. Any questions or comments on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? And that motion has been carried. We're moving forward into administration reports. I thought it should be yeah. Anyway, sorry, tongue twister today. Mr. Kraus, did you have anything you wanted to point out? Does anyone have any questions or? I know it's been a really long meeting today. Does anybody have any questions about any of the department reports? Maybe that would help move things along today. Too much FCM and hockey games and everything else, grad and everything else. Mr. Kraus, did you want to point out anything in any of those reports that you think is pertinent for council this time? Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Caprero?
Thank you. I'll make a motion to accept for information 11.1 department reports for June 11th, 2024.
Thank you very much. If no questions or comments on that motion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And that motion has been carried. Thank you very much. I forgot to say anybody opposed, but it was unanimous. So, moving forward in the agenda, the action list for June 11th, 2024. Mr. Kraus, did you want to go over that?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So the two outstanding items, the energy efficiency grant report, the council has tabled that until we get our facility assessment report, so it'll be in the future, so looking like September, I believe. And the municipal energy manager program that was discussed today with council. So.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about the action list for June 11th, 2024? Counselor Chappelle?
Also make a resolution that we accept the action list of June 11th as information.
Thank you very much. There's no questions or comments on that motion, and seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that's none, and so that's carried. So that concludes 12.1. Do we have any notices of motion today for 13? Seeing none, do we have any? We don't have a closed session. So completing the business, I will adjourn the meeting